Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome to the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. Because, well, you may have guessed it, every Friday, Ralph Bond joins us here to talk about science and technology trends and what that entails in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, these shows can really be all over the road. And I will say that you will see stories here and hear stories here that you may hear sometime in the future. Just one that I saw making the rounds that even my lovely wife sent me a link, said, hey, this sounds like something you talk about. And it was, I'll get Ralph on in a minute to see if he remembers, but we did a story a couple months ago about wood that was engineered to be stronger than steel. So I got sent a link to that about 6 to 8 months after we covered it. So hey, these stories very relevant for a long time, which is cool because if you go over to computeramerica.com, at the top there's a section for Ralph Bond where you can find all of our past shows and shows that even though they may be a couple weeks, couple months old, they're still extremely relevant. So, because these are very, very cutting edge. So, and again, there are also maybe something you haven't heard of before. So, always a fun way to lead into the weekend here on a nice little Friday. Everyone, let's go ahead and just bring Ralph on and just have fun with it. So, as I said before, he is our science and tech trends correspondent, longtime contributor, and of course, all around nice guy. Ralph, welcome back on to Computer America. How you been?
I'm doing okay, and you're right about it. Our stories can be all over the road. Not roadkill, hopefully, but all over the road. It covers everything. And so for people, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was going to say real quick about that story about like the wood stronger than steel part. Yeah, I've seen that on like social media and popping up on Instagram and in other places. And then my wife sent me the story, and I'm like, okay, now you pay attention. But yeah, just really fun, interesting stories.
You're right. You're talking about the very creative name of superwood, which we covered maybe a couple of months ago or something. So sometimes, folks, you're going to hear it first on Computer America. But for people who are joining us for the first time, welcome, of course. Let me explain very briefly what we do each Friday. So Ben and I, each Friday, we look at 4 articles that show us key trends and developments in all kinds of areas, hence the all across the road, all over the road comment earlier. It can be anything from artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, construction technology. There's your superwood, space research, physics, all across the board, you name it. But most important of all, this is really the motivation for both of us. We're going to give you an oasis, if I could say it, of positive news, thanks to the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And I think story number 1 really embodies just how kind of off the wall some of these stories can be. And, when I first read this, I was like, wow, people today will do anything to not have a kid. They need a brain for a computer, and they're like, we'll just grow one. So yeah, story number 1 is very, very strange, but hey, it could lead to some very interesting breakthroughs. So Ralph.
Yes, and I'll preface story number 1 with a couple of comments. 1, this is extremely early research. The headline is fun, it's exciting, but it's a little bit misleading. So the headline here is, and by the way, it comes from techspot.com. Headline, tiny lab-grown brains could help build the next generation of computers, with a subhead of biocomputing has left the realm of science fiction and entered the laboratory. Keyword there is laboratory. So we're still talking about experimentation, very early phases, and brains, by the way, you're going to find out we're really not talking about fully functional brains. Well, I can't call my brain fully functional, but you get the picture. Not like a whole complex human brain, but a brain-like organoid. So we'll explain all of this as we get into the story. So first of all, come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes, because we have the links to the story, we have images from the story, and sometimes I add additional tutorial information into the stories because the authors of these articles often assume the reader knows everything that they're talking about, and that's certainly not the case with me, so I insert some helpful things. But to get into it here, we'll start off with Swiss researchers are exploring the frontier of computing by creating processors from living cells, a field known as biocomputing, which is a really interesting field to watch. Their work, though inspired by concepts often seen in science fiction, relies on precise laboratory techniques and targets practical, real-world applications. And the company or the outfit we're talking about is one called FinalSpark Laboratory in Switzerland. And these scientists are developing what they call, kind of a weird word, wetware. Wetware, computers built from networks of lab-grown neurons. The wetware is an interesting.
Yeah, so not hardware, not software, but wetware because it's
Yes,
biological.
Yes.
I
And a
don't know
quick
if I like
side
that,
note,
but yeah.
And I inserted a little insert from their website about who they are and so forth. So FinalSpark's laboratory is located in Switzerland, as we mentioned. This Swiss company is pioneering biocomputing by cultivating living neurons in vitro, so in the lab, and using them for experimental computing systems. There's more information you can read if you want to check that out in the show notes. So the team, how do they do this? They start off with stem cells derived from human skin. And the researchers then culture the stem cells into clusters of neurons and supporting cells called organoids. And Ben, how many times in the last couple of years have we talked about organoids?
Yeah, where you just get the distilled essence of the thing that you're working with, researching on, not the full-fledged thing, and that's still enough to make these incredible breakthroughs in cancer research and medicine and so much more.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, to stress this, friends, if you're interested in medical science or science related to biocomputing in this case, learn about organoids. It's such a fascinating area of research and development. But going on with the story, these miniature, and here's the key, brain-like structures, not fully thinking brains, these miniature brain-like structures, visible as small white spheres in a lab dish, share the same cellular building blocks, as the human brain, but lack its complexity. So in the show notes, you'll see a picture from the article. There's a beaker, and at the bottom of it, you can see the little whitish ball-like structures. Those are the mini brain-like structures, the organoids we're talking about.
Yeah, when you're talking about high tech and technology, it's definitely a deviation than these very complex computers and all this hardware. Like, have you ever seen a quantum computer? It's all these tubes and piping everywhere.
Yep.
There's the proper word. But no, this is very much like a beaker and a test tube and organs.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And over several months, the organoids mature until researchers can connect them to electrodes. At that point, they attempt to send and receive electrical signals between the living neural tissue and a conventional computer system. When researchers send a signal from a keyboard, the responsive organoids generate activity that appears on a moving graph, similar to an EEG readout. And sometimes the signals stop unexpectedly, followed by short bursts of activity. So again, friends, this is very early research. They're not trying to say they've got a functioning biocomputer, but they're getting there. That's the point. And this electrical stimulation represents an early step toward the ultimate goal, training the neurons to process input and produce output in ways that parallel machine learning. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, And just looking at their website for a second, which again you can see in the video portion, but you can see here where they're definitely claiming that they will facilitate the platform for experimentation, and then it's up to you to kind of run the experiment. So they're not offering you biocomputing, but they're offering you a chance to research biocomputing using their their wetware. And Ralph, I'll be honest, like reading this, like what you sign up for, it's almost like custody, like a split custody. It's like 24/7 remote access to your brain organoid, real-time stimulation and reading to your organoid.
Isn't that interesting?
Like they're going to provide you 24/7 remote access to your organoid. And of course, again, it's up to you to really research the breakthrough. This is one of the weirder stories that you have brought to us in a long time.
It is. It really is. And you know what? It reminds me, too, of something I want to stress, especially to new viewers, new listeners to the show. What Ben and I do is we just give you the essential highlights, kind of super condensed bullet points from each of these articles. The show notes will give you links often to research papers, and in this case, Ben's showing you input from the company's website where you can learn so much more. So we're just teasing you. If you want to learn more, get those show notes and dive in as deep as you like.
Yeah, and by the way, you too can have one of these for just a simple $1,000 per month organoid. So there you go.
Well, really, that's not that crazy expensive when you consider it for research purposes.
In terms of medical research, no, that is definitely, and they even say they will partner with universities for the correct project. So I'm sure something, very related and with the right field, they would even partner with them for free. So
fascinating stuff.
Yep. Hope to hear more from them soon. So very cool. Story number one. Story number two, how do you top that? Well, there's always, and Ralph, I ran into this, I had to get a car last year, and while I was totally willing to frustrate myself and my life for the next, 10 years that you own the car, my wife said no. And the main thing was range anxiety for an electric car. I was definitely ready to just be like, we'll figure it out. But no, she's like, nope, we're getting a hybrid. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that is what it is. And what she says goes. So range anxiety is definitely a huge issue that's still plaguing a lot of people. And how do you overcome that? Ralph, and we have cars that go 300-400 miles on battery alone. But even then, range anxiety still exists. So story number two might address people that may say, well, if I can't find a charge station within 400 miles, am I really safe? And yeah, here we go.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, before we jump into the next story, which relates to everything Ben's just alluding to, remember, friends, if you've listened to me over the past couple of years, you know that I'm a major, major fan of plug-in hybrid. It's the best of both worlds. My RAV4 plug-in hybrid can go about 40 to 50 miles pure electric before it shifts into a traditional hybrid mode. I don't have range anxiety. If we're driving down to Sun River, Oregon, 200 some odd miles away, no problem. Because once the 40, 50 miles of pure EV expires, I shift into hybrid mode and I've got a full tank of gas, no problemo. So friends, if you want the benefit of electric driving, for most of us, we're driving, the American Automobile Association says most Americans drive about 30 miles a day. Mm-hmm. You could be pure electric for months and months and months until you do a longer trip. So I'll get off my soapbox about plug-in hybrids, but I'm a big fan there. And it's been a great
good PSA for the technology, because it really does matter. So.
Yeah. So our next story comes from interestingengineering.com, one of my favorite go-to sources. Headline: U.S. firm's new EV battery design could add 50% more range and targets 1,000 miles on a single charge. Really cool. We've got links to the article, of course, and links to the company's post about this technology. And Ben and I cover battery technology again and again and again. And every single day I'm seeing articles about new breakthrough and new this and new that. But I thought this one was particularly interesting. So let's get into it. A new battery design could allow electric vehicles to travel up to 50% farther on a single charge without increasing the battery's pack size, according to its developer, an outfit called 24M Technologies. And side note, In the show notes, I have a whole bunch of additional information about the history of 24M Technologies. It's an MIT spinoff. Once again, another example of how MIT keeps benefiting us over and over and over again. Going on, the Cambridge, Massachusetts-based company recently unveiled its cell-less electrode-to-pack technology as a way for manufacturers to produce more powerful, cost-effective batteries domestically for electric vehicles, vertical and takeoff landing aircraft, and energy storage systems. So this is a really interesting deal, Ben. We're going to find out about this cell-less technology.
Yeah, the ETOP, the Electrode-to-Pack technology seems to be popping up a lot in their literature. So yeah, please.
Yeah,
I need to know more.
This is the core of their innovation. So let's get into that. The 24M technology, and here's the key, folks, focuses on removing materials that do not store energy. It's saying, let's focus exclusively on that which stores energy. Traditional battery manufacturing encases electrodes in individual cell casings. I think you've seen it, which are then bundled into modules. And this process adds weight and volume caused by inactive components. Keep this all in mind. The electrode-to-pack system 24M has come up with bypasses this by creating sealed anode and cathode pairs that are stacked directly into the final battery pack, removing the need for individual cells and modules. Say it again, removing the need for individual cells and modules. This is so cool. According to 24M, its technology simplifies the manufacturing process, allowing companies to begin production with relatively low capital expenditures. Another benefit. And to wrap it up here, the process: sealing electrodes, stacking them, wiring, and closing the pack can be integrated into an assembly line from a single machine. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, you need to get the financials of it all correct, because Ralph, when you do, yes, saving the planet's good, and you know, all the, in the environment, all that's good stuff. Even with some of the even with some of the policy shifts we have seen that are moving away from renewable green energy, what have you, it may encourage people out there to know that there was a report a month ago so that said that the per gigawatt, I believe renewable energy, green energy, was the most added to the world's energy systems in last year. So essentially, instead of natural gas, instead of oil, instead of coal, it was wind, solar, and hydroelectric. And the main reason for that is, of course, it's just cheaper. It's just more cost effective. It's just easier to get up, solar panels and wind turbines than it is a coal burning plant, a natural gas burning plant. Yeah. And Ralph, when the financials of it work and it has an environmental benefit, you're going to see just the rapid acceleration and adoption of stuff like this. And so stories like this, improving electric cars are just going to make it be like, why would you get a gas car when you could just get a car that goes 1,000 miles on battery?
Well, yeah, and we're going to get there, if I can say it. And you bring up a really good point. I think it was this week, I hope I have this right, there was a news story, a breakthrough that said, for the first time, renewable energy, wind, solar, you take your pick, exceeded the production of electricity in the world beyond coal. It was the first time it was more than what coal has been producing for the world for decades and decades and decades. So something to think about there as well.
Yep. Pull up right here, October 9th. Renewable energy outpaces coal for the first
there you go.
Electricity generation in historic first. So
isn't that something? So
yeah, it's
in terms of that, there's a lot to be hopeful for.
Yeah.
Well, going on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No worries. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna wrap it up there, but no, please.
Okay, so folks, usually our last story of the 4 is medical related. This week, I'm going to do 2 in a row, okay? And the first one comes from thetimesofInnovation.com. That's a fun website, thetimesofInnovation.com. Headline, can glass replace bone? Scientists 3D print bioglass that mimics skeletal strength. Wow, this is pretty cool stuff.
I feel like that's like a joke, right? It's like glass bones and paper skin. You're like really fragile, but scientists are serious here with glass
Yeah.
bones.
They sure are. This is pretty cool stuff. So this article explores a breakthrough in additive manufacturing where scientists have developed a 3D printable bioglass that mimics the strength and structure of human bone. And this material could revolutionize bone repair and replacement. So usually when you think of glass, you think of fragility, but they're saying mimics the strength and structure of human bone. Wow. So some key highlights here. Researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences and Jiangsu University, I'm sure I'm butchering this, JIANGSU University. So researchers in China engineered a porous bioglass that closely resembles the mechanical properties of skeletal tissue. There's some great images in the show notes, by the way. The material is biocompatible, meaning it can integrate with living tissue without causing rejection. This is so important. And it's designed to support bone regeneration, offering a scaffold for cells to grow and heal damaged areas. Wow, Ben.
So it's not trying to say that, people are going to, I don't know, get legs replaced with glass legs or something like that. It's simply the scaffolding part, I think, is the important bit where, for repairing, it's
Right.
really hard to get that fusion, but this would do that for so many, not just like a clean break, but, I can imagine
Right.
for spines, rib cages, more
Yeah.
delicate, intricate pieces. Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And related to this, because of course this is 3D printing of sorts, the 3D printing process allows for customized implants tailored to an individual patient's anatomy. And Ben, over the past year or so, time and time again in medical technology research, we've seen this effort involving organoids, for example, and other technologies to make patient-specific solutions. This is a key trend in medical technology, folks. Patient-specific solutions. It's often using stem cells and so on, but in this case, it's this 3D printing of these bioglass structures. I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how medicine has gone from how do we create something that will work for the most people, and now it's how do we make these things work for each individual patient, and that's
Right.
just again an advancement of technology. It's great.
It is. It's just stunning, and it's a great trend to follow and watch. So to wrap it up, this innovation could lead to safer, more effective treatments for fractures, bone loss, and orthopedic surgeries, potentially replacing metal implants with something more natural and regenerative. There is the ta-da, drum roll, please. Great ending to this story.
Yeah, just not having it, the body kind of reject whatever you put in there. This
Yeah.
could lead to a lot of breakthroughs. So good job as always to all these researchers doing all these amazing research projects. It's I don't even know how you begin to say, with all the different metamaterials that we've talked about over the years, I don't know how you say glass is, kind of the next thing that we try because, Ralph, we've seen so many different kinds of materials. And so this one's new though.
This is definitely cool.
Yep. So story number 3, story number 4, and from brains in story 1, or brain organoids, to brains in story number 4. This one is a bit more on the informative side, but hey, it could lead to a lot of very interesting breakthroughs because Ralph, they say sleep is important, and I know that it's more fun to be awake and do your hobbies and whatnot, but sleep is super important, and story number 4 is going to highlight that yet again.
Absolutely. This is fun. This is very interesting on multiple levels. This comes from sciencealert.com. Headline: Study, should be new study, reveals brain system that repairs your body while you sleep. I'm going to stop for a second and do a side note here. You and I have covered in the past stories about how they've discovered or realized that every night when you sleep, your brain has kind of a flushing system. It has to do with Alzheimer's. They believe that interrupted sleep or bad sleep disrupts this flushing away of material and so forth in your brain, and this leaves behind elements that can transform into the material that causes Alzheimer's. That's been established. That's been well known. What we're going to talk about is another function of this flushing system that they hadn't known about before and now do through this research. So let's get into this here. It's kind of cool. This article discusses a groundbreaking study revealing a brain system that actively repairs the body during sleep. Repairs the body, not just flushes, repairs. When we sleep, the body releases its growth hormone, building up and repairing muscles and bones. But the details of how and why have been something of a mystery until now. Wow.
I just immediately think back to my teenage years when we're probably, some of the more formulative years of, kind of, young growth and all that kind of thing, Ralph. And I'm just thinking of all the energy drinks I drank and all the all-nighters I did staying up playing games. And I'm like, I had sabotaged this whole, I don't know how that system even stayed intact in my brain, because I'm sure, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure a lot of people have pulled all-nighters and, done incredible amounts of caffeine, but it's important.
Oh, yeah. So, through a close analysis of brain circuitry in mice, thank you, mice again, researchers led by a team from the University of California, Berkeley, have found special mechanisms and feedback loops that regulate growth hormone release while we sleep. The researchers discovered that the brain's meningeal, I hope I'm saying that right, meningeal lymphatic vessels, a network previously known for waste clearance, that's what I was talking about before. Also, now they know that this system also plays a crucial role in distributing immune cells and healing signals throughout the body while we sleep. So they knew about this system. They just didn't know it also did this. Pretty cool.
It's sometimes, Ralph, we come up with these new breakthroughs, and one of them was the brain flushing thing you're talking about. Sometimes it's the gut ecosystem and bacteria in there, whatever it may be, these systems that we don't know about. And then once you kind of know about them, you can see, well, what else do they affect and what affects them and how does it work?
Right.
And then you come up with even more breakthroughs and discoveries. I think that's what we have here, just a building on previous research.
It absolutely correct. And going on here with some of the key findings from this, to distill it very briefly, during sleep, these vessels ramp up activity, helping transport immune cells and repair molecules from the brain to the rest of the body. Wow. The system may explain why sleep is so vital for recovery from illness, injury, and inflammation. The study suggests that disrupted sleep could impair this healing process, potentially linking poor sleep to chronic conditions. And the findings could help us better treat conditions that come with sleep problems, including type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. And finally, understanding sleep is the key to understanding a whole host of aspects of our health. And again, friends, please come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes, because there is so much more to this story than what we just gave you, the super, super condensed highlights. We have a link to their research paper. It's all there in the show notes. Check it out.
Absolutely. And all of it's going to be right there. By the time that you hear this, the show notes will be up. And yeah, Ralph, I mean, this is what you need. Like, even if we at first, didn't really know about this, and then we start learning about this, I mean, the more we kind of pick up on what we don't know, the more we can kind of fill in the blanks and start to cure these diseases. Because, Ralph, imagine if this really does play a crucial role in the development of Alzheimer's, and we didn't even know the system existed. How do you treat Alzheimer's when you don't even know about the whole brain washing mechanism
exactly
that you're talking about? So yeah, all interlink. So there you go. Story number 4, amazing. And again, computeramerica.com, find the show notes. You can find all the stories there. So with that being said, well, if you're following along, you can of course see that there are 4 more stories. And these stories are, well, honorable mentions. And they're honorable mentions that, It's not that they're worse, not that they're less. Everyone here does amazing things. It's just we try to keep the show a bit more condensed, and we're doing a good job of it today. And hey, we're going to keep that roll going, but we're at least going to give you the headlines and where it comes from. And if you want to find out more, come to the show notes. Ralph has already done a little write-up you can read, or you can go to the original sites and see more of it yourself. So, Ralph, let's at least give them the headlines.
Yeah, this one comes from a site that I hadn't discovered before called energyreporters.com. Headline, one molecule defies physics. Subhead, Cambridge scientists unveil something called P3TTM solar breakthrough with near perfect efficiency, threatening conventional energy industry order. So this is a really great trend and early research subject matter. If you're into the solar energy field, check that one out. Our next honorable mention, and we have 4 of them, by the way. So number 2 comes from Digitrends blog. Headline, microbes unlock copper as AI demand soars. It's talking about the demand for data centers and this sort of thing, and the demand for copper as part of the materials used to create these amazing, enormous data centers, of course, and how microbes could help generate or create this copper source. It's pretty interesting stuff, pretty out there. The next one comes from thecooldown.com, which is part of msn.com. Headline, scientists develop incredible leaf-inspired material that could replace plastic, and it's very strong. And Ben, talk about trends. You and I, over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 months, time and time again, we've seen these stories where scientists are saying, how does nature do something like this? How do the veins of a butterfly maybe help us create a cooling system for graphics processor units, all this kind of stuff. And this is another good example of that trend to look at nature for inspiration. Really cool.
I will say this artificial leaf, just looking at the image the scientists put out, looks more like a cut of sushi. But
yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, but artificial leaf it is. So
yeah, it's just really weird. And actually, the graphic that's in that little article is very helpful if you want to get and geek out on that. And our last honorable mention comes from, again, good old interestingengineering.com. Headline, scientists crack the mystery of hidden atomic order inside microchips for the first time. And the subhead is, using advanced microscopy and artificial intelligence, scientists revealed short-range atomic order that changes how semiconductors conduct electricity. This is a fundamental potential impact on chip production and manufacturing. So check this story out. It's very, very interesting.
Absolutely. It's, again, just filling in those little gaps of knowledge that we have. And sometimes, Ralph, you look at modern technology, modern science, some of these stories that we even talk about, and we go, how did we even get here without knowing that? And it's really incredible. So everyone, music in the background means that we're going to wrap it up here, but I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in, listening, and following along with these stories. Really appreciate it. And of course, I want to thank Ralph for putting this together. Always, it was great. And you can find more at Computer America. Find the Ralph Bond section, and you can see all of his past shows and current shows. So with that being said, everyone, join us here next time on Computer America. Have a great weekend. Do something fun, and we will catch you here with more amazing stories. Until then, have a good one. Bye, everyone.